Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV WORLD. In today's show, we will be taking a look at two important stories. The first is with reference to what is going on in the country and the kind of impact it is putting on the economy of the country, and of course what's happening in the international markets as well. Whatever the reason may be, of course the people and the economy in Pakistan has been suffering for quite some time now, and since early this year we have seen that the rupee has been depreciating, and it has also the dollar has crossed a new high of more than 240 rupees as well. And we've seen in the recent days quite a deep plunge also taking place, and there has been a total depreciating of a very significant amount since the new government has also come in, and then of course since the Punjab Assembly and its aftermath regarding the decision of the CM Punjab took place as well. So whatever is going on politically, of course, has had an impact on the economic situation of the country, but we've also seen that the international prices keep on increasing as well, and in the post-COVID era we've seen that this is also something that has been impacting the economy. But regardless, what we need to do about it is the real question, and what can be done about it. How much time do we have? Are we close to a default or not? Is Pakistan taking all the possible measures that it has in its capacity? Do we need the structural and fundamental reforms urgently, as we keep talking about? Is there any effort being made in that regard? All of these questions still remain unanswered, and of course the kind of statements that have been coming forward with regards to, of course, the economic outlook of the country, and the statements coming in from the finance ministry and the minister himself as well, also need to be discussed in terms of what really is going on, what are the actual numbers, and what sort of direction the economy is going to take in the next couple of months. So that is going to be our focus of the discussion today, since of course the political matters of the country are important, but the economic situation at hand calls for urgent discussion and decisions as well. Our second segment is going to take a look at the prohibited funding case that has been there on PTI, and something that the PDM keeps talking about and calling for a verdict on it very soon from the ECP. This particular case has been pending since 2014, and we haven't really heard a verdict as yet, and so there has been calls with regards to this decision coming out sooner, and that there is a constitutional responsibility, and that the people of Pakistan need to know the truth behind this, and whether or not there has been any money obtained through illegal means, and that of course the kind of impact it has on the political party and the decisions the political parties take. So that is going to be under discussion, especially in light of the report that is being cited of the Financial Times, which has talked about the prohibited funding and also a questionable funding through a cricket match that was then transferred to a PTI under, of course, Abraj and Wooten Cricket Limited. And the question regarding Arif Naqvi and the way this particular transactions took place, and whether or not it's going to put a big question mark on the funding of PTI, and how it's going to be resolved, and what really is there in terms of any legalities. Of course, there has been statements coming in from PTI's leadership as well, claiming that everything and all transactions that happened were declared and also obtained from legal means. So we're going to try and discuss really what is the stance of the PDM there, and technically and legally what is being discussed. That's going to be at the end of the show. For this and more, as always, I've been joined in the studios by Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal, and we've also been joined online by Dr. Hakan Najib, former advisor, Ministry of Finance. Thank you very much, Dr. Hakan, for joining us and being a part of the debate. We'll also be joined very soon by Dr. Sajid Amin, who's Deputy Executive Director, STPR. I'll start with you, Dr. Hakan. When we, of course, take a look at the current economic situation of the country and the kind of discussions that are taking place, the kind of questions that are being raised, everybody seems to be pointing out at the urgency of the matter, at the critical nature of the matter, and so we're really, of course, concerned as to what exactly is going on, especially in terms of the economic outlook and the discussions that have come forward from the Ministry of Finance. So if we were to take a look right now at the economy of Pakistan and the current situation that we're dealing with, what sort of a picture would you paint in terms of the kind of decisions that need to be taken, or the urgency that is there, or the time that Pakistan has to get out of this crisis?
And Dr. Najib, the reason why we are discussing this right now is that the RV chief also spoke to Wendy Sherman, a senior official in the US State Department. Now that actually, and it was duly confirmed by the Foreign Office as well. Now the concern that is being raised is that situation might be so bad that Army Chief had to intervene also using his military diplomacy. Could you shed some light on this as well?
Having me on PTV World, it's always a pleasure. Let me start by saying that situation internationally and situation domestically is both challenging and uncertain. On the international front, what we have seen is that the growth estimates for 2022 have been lowered to somewhere 3.2%. Just to give viewers a sense, they were 6.1% last year. So growth globally is halved. Inflation has risen. Emerging markets are now envisioning almost a double-digit inflation on the average, and the developing world, the developed world, more than 6%. So it's a challenging picture with, of course, Brent, as we talk, is trading in front of me on the screen at $110 a barrel, not coming down. Outputs is constrained and demand still stays comfortable. So that's the global picture. In that, if you see Pakistan's picture, let's see how we closed FY 2022. Indeed, very challenging. $45 billion of trade in goods deficit. Our exports were about $39.4 billion, but our imports of goods and services clocked at $84 billion and a current account deficit of $17.4 billion. These are numbers which present a picture of a challenging balance of payments, and the ramifications of that balance of payments are evident in our current account deficit, translating to our foreign exchange reserves at about $8.5 billion, almost covering about a month and about 10 days of our imports. Again, not good. The comfortable level is about 3 months. In this scenario, you've seen the pressure on the rupee, and that is increased because when we closed June, what happened was that we imported a higher amount of oil products, nearly $3 billion, which were almost twice of what we did in May. Those LCs are coming to be cleared in July, and you see the pressure persistent from June and July and on the rupee. All roads for such an economy lead to only one place. I have been saying this for the last 5 months. The day we move into an IMF program with the board approval, you will see things at least stabilizing. And why do I say that? Pakistan was in an IMF program. We had completed 6 reviews. The 7th review has been pending for a couple of months. The last government tried, and then came this government. And that leads to the fact that this delay has cost us. This delay would have stabilized and given a signal that we had started the reform process of bringing down our current account, bringing down our fiscal, and bringing down our energy deficit or the circular debt, which is 850 billion rupees. That's a whopping $4 billion. For IMF, right. We look for about 6 billion. And just to end on Pitafi's thing, and that's why the necessity of establishment, the political leadership, the friends to ask the IMF to do it as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Right, Dr. Hakan, you of course have outlined the difficulties that currently, of course, Pakistan is facing economically. But at the same time, we've also been seeing that Mr. Miftah Ismail keeps talking about perhaps a more positive outlook in terms of the situation changing in the next couple of months, especially with regards to the IMF agreement as well that he keeps referring to, and other sorts of inflow coming in Pakistan. But when we try and understand the situation and coincide that or align it with the kind of numbers that we're seeing right now, how soon are we actually looking at the situation getting better, or does getting better mean that we'll be able to perhaps stop where we are?
And Dr. Hakan, if we had an approval by the IMF back in June, then what kind of impact it would have on our economy? And by now, the dollar rates, where would have been standing?
And by the way, I hope, Dr. Najib, that you have pen with you, pen and paper, because I have a question also regarding the outlook at this moment. We know that the IMF board is going to meet by the end of August. And if all things go to plan, we are going to get the review done and then a resolution as well. Why is it that the markets still keep on exuding all the uncertainty?
All very relevant questions. So let me start with the first question. One, we must take this challenge extremely seriously. Just think about it. Bangladesh, which had $40 billion of reserves, preemptively went to the fund. So going to the fund is your only way out. If we were to go to the fund, what is the future looking like? The future would look better in the sense that you would see some stabilization as we get about $1.17 billion from the fund. Multilateral flows become better if we do the hard work on getting project and program financing. That requires, again, hard work, and we cannot postpone. Number three, the funds from Saudi Arabia, the funds from UAE, the funds from Qatar, whether they are in deferred payments of LNG, deferred payments of petroleum, and some investments, as well as the SDRs to IMF to give us a better loan as we move forward in the next 12 months, increase our loan position. If that were all to happen, and we were to take some measures on conservation, I have been saying this for the last 5 months since I've seen oil cross $100. Conservation is today's energy policy. Do not import any LNG. I mean, LNG is costing us 4 times of our long-term contracts. So let's, keep the LNG imports out. Let's keep petrol and MO gas and diesel also at the minimum. Let's have, 1 day off. Let's have 1 day off at the petrol station. Let's keep our air conditioners at 28 degrees if we are able to put a conservation. And if we curtail our expenditures, all to bring down the current account deficit from what we have clocked at $17.4 billion to around $8-9 billion, then we would see the pressure weaning off. And when I say pressure weaning off, what I mean is that the reserves would start to build. Our position on the rupee would start to move both ways, as it should in a market-based exchange rate. We also keep the pressure on the fiscal going, where we collect the required amount so that we don't have to borrow from the outside. And we start thinking about good overall agriculture management. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that we are importing wheat, we are importing cotton, we are importing lentils, we are importing edible oil. In the 6 months, we must think of agriculture policy which at least safeguards from this $9-10 billion envisaged import in this year and brings it down. So if we save 8-10 billion on the current account, if we are able to save on the agriculture money that we spend, the outlook for the next 6 months would remain comfortable. And this challenging position, I don't think we are in a default situation at all, would become better.
I'm glad that you have actually spoken about agriculture as well. Recently, UAE has gone to India and invested a substantial amount for the agricultural produce. It seems that, I don't know what exactly is it. We have arable land, we have so many resources. Somehow it seems that we haven't been able to pitch ourselves for that kind of capacity to international investors. Is there a possibility that think tanks and intellectuals can come up with some kind of policies, proposals that then can also go to the government of Pakistan, which can then use it to prepare a better agriculture policy?
Farrukh, let me also introduce Dr. Sajid Amin, the Deputy Executive Director, SDPI, has joined us. And perhaps this may be a more relevant question for him, but if you still want to go to Dr. Hakan, we can take it from him.
I mean, whosoever wants to answer, I don't mind.
Dr. Sajid, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you. Thank you.
And did you hear Farrukh's question?
No, I couldn't actually.
All right, let's hear Dr. Hakan's opinion on this, and I'll come back to you. Yes, Dr. Hakan.
If we had been with the IMF, if we had done the 7th review, I think things would have been slightly more stable, and this talk of default would not have been there. The certainty would have been much better.
My question was about agriculture. I don't know whether you heard.
And so, Yeah,
My
I heard
question
it.
was primarily about how India has attracted investment from UAE regarding agriculture, and there is going to be agricultural development there. Pakistan could have also dipped its toe in this water by pitching itself. We have arable land, which is very useful. We did not. That means that perhaps the organic policy making process overlooks these issues, right? So perhaps our think tanks, our intellectuals can provide some kind of input to the government so that some measures or some policy regarding agriculture can also help here.
Absolutely, you can't take that away, right? Agriculture is 20% of your GDP directly, contributes about more than 40% indirectly. Your yields are at a place where 1 acre in Pakistan, our wheat production is, I think, about 40 months, and India is 80 to 100. So what we are trying to do here is that agriculture, we had the first revolution, we were good on the green revolution, we missed on the gene revolution, and now there's the AI revolution of mechanization. This relates to the fact that we have not been able to channel investment into the country. Pakistan's investment over the last 1 year is a paltry $1.85 billion, whereas I think India is about $84 billion. So when we compare ourselves, foreign direct investment into these areas is a must, and mechanization, again, getting
Automation.
know-how, automation,
And
mechanization, AI, new technologies, and then also the role of the local agencies, the Pakistan Agriculture Research Council, the National Agriculture Research Council, and the agri universities in Pakistan. So we must, look to them as well as we look
Right,
outside.
absolutely, Dr. Hakan, and of course that is a series of measures that we should take. But Dr. Sajid, I want to understand, because whenever we talk about such measures or talk about things that need to be done, it seems to be divorced from what is really happening at the moment. It seems to me that at least that currently, or the priority tasks or the urgent tasks at hand require perhaps more immediate and more tough decisions to be taken, and action where it's needed is perhaps not really being taken there. For example, reforms or having consensus over something, or developing a chart of economy, or doing something about the economy right now and curtailing it. So when we talk about these measures, how do you see the current actions or steps being taken? Because we keep hearing the terms that the government or the institutions are taking all possible measures, but what sort of measures are they, and are we really looking into all the possibilities? And then if we are, then what sort of a direction is the economy going to be taking? I'll come back to you, Dr. Hakan, because I believe Dr. Saj is not with us at the moment.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, again, so what this is absolutely true. Pakistan goes from one crisis to the other, dozens of IMF programs, and whenever we go into an IMF program, remember they're focused on pricing changes because it's a 3-year run, and we get into them. So focus has to be on three things. One, we talked about agriculture. Second, let's put something on the table. Energy sector is bleeding, is not efficient, and is going to take the country down if we don't do anything about it. And I really mean that. You have 1,500 billion rupees in the SUI sector, which is your circular debt, and you have more than 2,400 billion rupees at circular debt in the, this is quasi-fiscal deficit, which we don't recognize. You have discos running with the government, which were supposed to be privatized 26 years ago. FESCO's been on the privatization list for the last 26 years, and we haven't been able to move. Energy sector needs a rethink where we redesign this sector and for once decide whether we want to run it. Fair enough. We want to run it, then let's run it in a competitive manner. If we want to sell it, let's decide to sell it. We've been stuck in between. The second one would be energy redesign. If we don't redesign this sector, it will make cost of doing business so high that we will not be able to make our industry competitive, make our agriculture competitive, make our service sector competitive. And the third one I would do.
Yes, go ahead.
And the third one that I would do in Pakistan is realize that there are 5.2 billion economic establishments in the country. Let me repeat that figure, 5.2 million economic establishments in the country. 99% of those are SMEs. 1% of those are the large scale boys. And all our funding, all our attention, all our export incentives are going to the 1%. The world has grown where you have been able to make this 99% do the hard work, connect with the world,
All right.
and become
Yes.
part of the globe.
Yes, we have Dr. Sajid with us.
Yeah,
Faisal.
Dr. Sajid, earlier, obviously Farrukh asked an excellent question, and he highlighted that obviously the Gulf countries, they are investing in India because in recent years they have been considering India as their breadbasket, and sadly, I mean, while we were busy fighting war and terror, we could not, put any efforts towards our agriculture side, and of course we could not attract the investors, the foreign investors in it. I just wanted to know, we know that in the world right now there are a developed world is using technology to gain more crops from the very less lands. In Pakistan we don't have shortage of land. In Pakistan we don't have a shortage of water as well. It's just the problem how to manage it. Pakistan maybe is failing to manage the water crisis. Especially right now we are facing the floods as well. It is due to the poor management that we are keeping it always at stake. Just wanted to know when we would start thinking about these lines, and of course when we start doing it, that is when we will start attracting the Gulf or elsewhere investors to invest in Pakistan and turn Pakistan into a breadbasket.
And could we also tie it to the second phase of CPEC, when we were told that China is going to invest heavily in our agricultural sector, where our yield will improve? And I understand that in certain parts of Pakistan, the Arab countries have already invested substantially in corporate farming. But is there a pitch that we can make, sir?
Well, thank you so much. And my apologies, I was traveling, so got a couple of disconnections.
No problem.
No problem.
So quite a lengthy question, to be very honest. But let me go in without any particular order, so please excuse me if I miss anything. Unfortunately, Pakistan's focus has more been on sort of friendship-based interventions. When it comes to sort of attract the foreign investors that you are referring to, it takes three things at least. The one is the political stability. I mean, you compare it with India or Bangladesh, with any country. The first requirement is the political stability. Number two is the efficient human capital, be it in agriculture, be it in industry, be it in manufacturing, be it in services sector. And third is the consistency of economic policy. Unfortunately, all these three has been missing in Pakistan, have been missing. And still, if you see the current, I mean, I was listening to Hakan Saab as well, he's a good friend. But I think if we are giving current analysis right now, at least I don't expect any major structural reforms from this government. First and foremost thing that we need to do right now is ensure political stability. What is happening is actually, almost every country globally is in stress these days. Be it exchange rates, be it inflation, so the problems are more or less common. But in Pakistan, the political instability is magnifying actually the
Right, but
impact
Dr.
of
Sajid, you say ensure political stability, but that is a very challenging task. And how does one actually ensure that happens?
And there are parts of the world where you don't have that kind of stability, but economy still continues to take on.
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm saying that the challenge that we are having is much bigger. All our proposals and solutions actually can only happen and work in the political stable environment. I mean, there can be 2 to 3 ways. For example, I think immediately what can be done is, though I know this is difficult, it hasn't happened, but it is not it does not allow us to pass the challenge, actually. I mean, I can give so many proposals, but I know that they are not workable under current environment, actually. So first and foremost is that our political party should at least agree on IMF program implementation without any political mileage or scoring. That is actually the starting point. Otherwise, what are we are proposing, be it agriculture, be it manufacturing, be it services, this is a long-term, medium to long-term proposals. They cannot be implemented in the current environment. First and foremost, we have to go for
just a clarification, Faisal. Dr. Sajid, I appreciate what you're saying and understand that sentiment, but we've talked about all of these shoulds multiple times before, and of course this should happen, but we haven't really seen it, and we don't really see a sign that it's going to be happening anytime soon. Meanwhile, every day we keep hearing that the situation is getting worse, and we can talk about all the numbers over here, but really what the common people understand is that when they go and buy something, it's expensive day by day, and they're suffering and they can't pay their bills. And that, of course, is a huge concern for the people of Pakistan. So when that happens, and when we don't see political certainty, and we're left with few options on the table, I want to understand what those options are realistically, and how much effort is being made to make sure that all the options are being utilized, and what really is the situation that the people of Pakistan are looking at in the next couple of months.
And bear in mind, sir, that we are living in the age of global food crisis. So it becomes an existential challenge as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I am actually trying to convey. Let's be very honest in our analysis, actually. I don't see any major shift in next 4 to 6 months, this economic situation that we are having, be it the exchange rate, be it the inflation. I mean, then you have two possible then solutions, that we wait for the right time to come for the long term, we correct all these structural energy problems, structural sort of the agricultural problems that we couldn't in 70 years. I have been continuously proposing that government needs to work on simultaneously on three stages. The first, number one, is protecting people from the adverse impacts of the stabilization policies, and that can only be immediately at this point of in the short term can be done through the social safety nets and social protection policies that need to be strengthened. If we are expecting that inflation will slow down in next couple of months to 6 months, it is not going to happen. It may further even increase. So I think we need to put our analysis, sort of the prescriptions, in a right way, which can actually calm sort of the market number. That is the two. We need to bring credibility to market, at least in major areas, which is creating panic, actually. For example, the one is that what is happening to the IMF program. There should be a clear message that IMF program is there, it is coming there. But the problem with Pakistan is that we raise the expectations of the people before, and then we do not match up those expectations. This has been actually happening. If you see in 2018, what happened is that the PTI government came in power with such a huge expectations burden that it couldn't perform to the expectations level and created the panic in the market. Similarly, this government came also that we will control inflation, we will do this one, we will do that. So I think the first is that let people know the reality. This is the reality. Because if you have to have expectation management, be it inflation expectations, be it exchange rate expectations, the number one is the honest situation to the people, number one. Number two is, and again go back to there, that we have to strengthen the social protection, social safety nets to protect people from the adverse impacts of inflation, because I see inflation to rise further, particularly the food inflation. This will be rising further. We don't have any solution.
Right.
Yeah. Dr. Hakan, if we look at the current situation, of course, the political as well as the economic situation, would you agree that Pakistan needs to have a national consensus on politics as well as economy, how to run country's economy? Because one thing is for sure, whichever the government takes any stance or any step towards making it better, of course the opposition party starts demonizing their steps, even if it is to go towards the IMF. I mean, we have seen in the current political situation as well that the steps taken to go towards the IMF, they were being demonized and eventually even IMF was getting sort of edgy about it as well.
Right, and Dr. Khakan, if you could also add and explain the difference between the staff level agreement and board level agreement in terms of what is being discussed and whether or not we won't be losing out on this agreement due to the conditions.
Yeah. So let me answer the first question by being very practical. I mean, these things, when we say national consensus and grand national dialogue, they should happen. Everyone should keep talking. But if you ask me personally, I think the political parties need to have a very, very clear sense of economic, social, privatization policies on the menu. And that's something for them to do. And they may think differently. Someone may want to do heavy privatization, someone may want to do heavy triple P, public private partnership. But I think as we strengthen the political system, these political parties should, in their own sense, have the best economists advising them, have good social scientists advising them, good scientists advising them. And that's the institution I think that really needs to be strengthened. So that's the national policy framework that should work. Of course, they should talk to each other. And what they also have seen is that the patient level of people has shrank in the sense, and within 2-3 years, people get jittery if parties are not delivering in the sense of what she was talking earlier in terms of inflation, in terms of pricing changes that are occurring, especially job creation that are happening. So then there is an air that is created that delivery is not there. So I think that's the consensus that parties need to have within themselves, and spend time
Right.
there. That's what I would do.
And
Just on the
Dr.
last.
Saab, I love answers and even questions where we talk about what should or could be done. But let me ask you, because you're also saying that this should be done. What kind of magic wand does that involve, given that there is so much bitterness in the system right now? People are not ready to even look at each other's faces. How do you recommend or suggest that we actually bring all the parties on the same table?
Sure. So let me just answer the staff level, because this is really important. The nation should know, the markets should know. Here's the clear message. Pakistan's staff level agreement should not be taken as a small thing. I've done staff level agreements for Pakistan. I've done them from other countries as well. Staff level agreement is a big thing. That means that the country and the country, the country and the IMF have reached on a set of policies that forms the basis of moving in the next 3 months. So that's done, and that's a big thing that has happened. Then there are some prior conditions. The countries meet those prior conditions. I think they're very harsh. Better negotiation would have brought them down. Let's say we agree. We have almost done most of them. There's just one pending issue, which is the gross financing issue, which we are also trying to sort with the country.
But a staff level agreement is not binding, right? So that means that the door is still slightly open for going back on this, or is it not?
So I've done at least 16 staff level agreements for Pakistan. All 16 went into the board. I mean, and that's the 12 in the first program, and I think 3-4 here. So all went into the board. Now there is only one condition that I think is being debated, which is the fact that our gross financing needs are being finalized with the friendly countries. I am quite sure that that would be overcome, and within few days, in my sense, between 24th and 26th of August, Pakistan should be in an IMF board position. Here,
Right.
where the army chief has spoken to the US officer, I think that is to strengthen the position. US is a heavy board member. US has a clout, so do others. Right now, when you say consensus, the consensus is the establishment stands behind IMF. The political parties, 13 of them in power, stand behind them. The executive stands behind. We stand behind as economists. So that's the
Right,
consensus.
absolutely.
Should
Thank
go
you
to
so
the
much,
IMF.
Dr. Khakan. That's unfortunately all we have time for, but thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much, Dr. Sajid, for being a part of the debate. Before we conclude this particular segment, Farrukh, quickly, again, taking a look at, of course, the army chief's move and call out for US to be actually be also a helping supporter in terms of the IMF, or to actually assist in any way with this regard, is being viewed differently, of course. And there is also the political scenario that exists and the way that this is being talked about. How do you see this particular move, whether or not this is unusual in any way, and whether or not it will benefit the economic situation?
Thank you, Sana. The reason why I kept on insisting, and people might have seen the trading of chits, in which I was repeatedly requesting you that I should speak on this matter,
Yes.
Is because there is so much chaos and noise in the system that people don't even understand what is good for them, right? At this moment, it is very important to understand, usually everyone has a set job. I'm supposed to come and sit and talk to you, give my analysis or ask questions and go back home. If something falls and I have to actually pick it up, it is beyond the call of duty, right? The problem at this moment is that the country is going through a crisis which is quite serious, and you cannot do what Sri Lanka did by sleeping on the steering. You have to actually keep on moving ahead and stay awake. It is all hands on the deck kind of situation. In that situation, the army chief's initiative should be lauded for 2 or 3 reasons. Okay. One, regarding all the various aspects of national interest, we have seen that he has gone beyond the call of duty. May it be Afghanistan's Doha dialogue, may it be interaction with the US, may it be other, particularly, let me remind everybody, the LOC agreement revival was also actually something that army actually came forward and did it, right? So at this moment, it is very important to appreciate whosoever is contributing to the solutions, and I think that the army chief has this capacity to go beyond the call of duty, and he has repeatedly done this, and this time also, regardless of where you are at. The opposition, somehow they are supporters of opposition. Why is he doing this now? Why not wait till we are in power? Excuse me, the country cannot wait. And then there are people within the ruling coalition supporters as well who would say it was prerogative of the foreign minister, it was prerogative of this, that or the other. Whosoever has any kind of leeway with the foreign powers, with the countries or powers that be, should play a role, including you. So I think that we should commend army chiefs this role.
Right. Let's also move on to our next segment now, since we have very little time. Faisal, we're going to be, of course, talking about the situation regarding the prohibited funding case that is being talked about by the political parties in the PTM. And this, of course, is something that is being talked about now. It's being talked about in the aftermath of what happened in the Punjab Assembly as well. So there's that context as well, and there's that context of the Supreme Court's decision and the call for judicial reforms as well. But when we talk about this particular case as well, there is discussion on whether or not there were any transactions that were made illegally. There's of course talk of Arif Naqvi, of Abraj and Wooden Cricket Limited, and a total of 2.12 million that came to PTI through these companies. So when we talk about this prohibited funding and the impact it has on the political party's credibility, and of course it's the constitutional responsibility for the people to know where the money is coming from, how do you see this particular case, since of course it's been very long, it's a demand by the PDM, and of course it's a legitimate concern of the people of Pakistan as well as to what's going on?
Exactly. Sana, if we look at the length of the case, obviously it initiated back in 2014, and since then, I mean, there were so many, almost around 50 incidents in which it was getting reinitiated once again, and we were hearing about it in the media once more, but then it went off once again. But now I think this time around it will be decided. If we talk about Abraj Group, of course it was a massive group that was based in Dubai, and in the
still is
it is
an
in London
entity
as well.
Yeah.
And Arif Naqvi is someone who's considered as, one time he was considered as one of the wealthiest overseas Pakistanis. So he himself had sort of his influence on overseas Pakistanis and all, and he had an urge to associate himself with the prominent Pakistanis at that time. He used to arrange all of these events, and of course PTI's chairperson Imran Khan used to go there as well. Imran Khan says that of course for the Shaukat Khanum Memorial Hospital, Arif Naqvi has been paying a lot of funds. If we talk about PTI, he funded PTI. By law, if we talk about the law, of course anyone from the outside of the country, they can't fund a political party of Pakistan, because when we talk about funding a political party of Pakistan, it means that you are trying to create a stake within the party that is going to legislate in coming future of Pakistan. So by the essence of it, of course, it is the right law, and this is how it should be. And even PTI does not negate the factor that they have been receiving funds from the overseas Pakistanis.
It's been declared. So what really is the issue then? There's no issue?
Well, the issue is that it is a prohibited fund, which was, getting into PTI, and if PTI was
so declaring it makes no difference. Is that what you're saying?
Declaring it makes...
No, declaring it in time actually makes the difference.
In time
if it was
makes a
declared
difference.
later on, then that becomes a problem.
But
right?
law is law.
Yeah, and
Right.
by the way, let me tell you, today is a great day, by the way,
Okay.
because yesterday when we were discussing a very crucial case regarding judicial reforms, remember that we also talked about JCP and its proceedings. Today, what the Honorable Supreme Court has done is release the audio of the entire session, and that is a new development in Pakistan for the sake of transparency. I think we should welcome that.
Absolutely.
So in Election Commission's case also, this case has been pending, but there are many complications that have been arising, right? Of course, if you are under trial, you are going to deflect and you are going to try to delay it as well. But on the other side also, because other parties kept on asking for more access to information, that also has prolonged. Now the decision has been saved, it has been reserved. We don't know when it is going to come, but this little transition from being called the foreign funding case to prohibited is important, because in foreign funding case, you could be banned as a party, or a certain leader could actually face very grave consequences. In this case, it doesn't happen like that.
Okay, what are the consequences?
At best, they can be asked to return this money to the source,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And by the way, the trigger of today's discussion is, of course, the article that you mentioned by Simon Clark. I'm talking about the author.
Right.
He has written a book on Naqvi, Arif Naqvi. It is called Key Man. Beautiful book. You must read it, because that book actually tells you how a Raj actually blew up and then actually collapsed as well. And if you know, one of the reasons why Arif Naqvi, despite the fact that he hails from Karachi, was such an influential factor in Pakistan, is that he also bought, or actually bought shares in K Electric, Karachi supply, electricity supply firm. But later on, because lobbying efforts were there also, everything becomes complicated. But this article doesn't accuse only one party of taking money. Right now, Prime Minister's tweet also has come forward.
Right.
PM says that he hopes that Imran Khan is going to sue, Financial Times for defamation, because if that doesn't happen, then it will actually prove the veracity of accusation against Imran Khan.
Right, but you're saying that the case in itself is posing no real consequence to
Financial
PTI's
consequences, of
political
course.
future.
If
Also,
you are asked
popularity
to
concerns?
return one of your salaries, that is going to cause some problem, right? But not
Yes,
that
it's going to hurt me a
existential,
little, but that's about
Yeah.
it. But is
Sort of
my
one-liner.
career also at stake is the question. And Faisal, you can take that as well.
What is at
with
stake?
regards to my career, I was just moving on
No,
from
no,
what
not
you
at all.
spoke on.
No, I don't
Exactly.
think
So maybe the PTI's political career is also not at stake at the moment, but what about in terms of popularity? Doesn't have an impact in considering the situation that we're in right now?
No, it won't.
It won't?
Because they will consider it as overseas funding, overseas Pakistanis funding it. And
Who
we
they?
know,
People?
Yeah, the
Today's story is complicated. It actually
It
shows
is
that foreign elements also contributed to that money, right? That is important. But at this moment, what we are looking at is that this article also admits that Imran Khan is thought to be made of Teflon. So whether it is going to harm him or not, I don't know.
Yes.
But there is a very interesting case here. This story will further unfold.
Quickly, Faisal, 20
a
seconds.
prediction, this prohibited funding will not be prohibited in coming future once overseas Pakistanis
All right, that remains to be
are
seen.
allowed to vote.
All right, thank you very much, everyone, for being a part of the debate and being with us tonight. We'll see you on Monday now. Take care. Have a nice weekend.